Hi, this is the solution to your first vectors quiz. By now you should have completed the quiz and you would have got a score back. If you have a specific question, maybe one that you've got incorrect that you want to have a look for the solution for, then feel free to fast forward. Remember, these videos are also useful if you feel like you need additional notes. You can pause and copy things down as you're going through it. And as always, if you've got any problems or any questions, please just get in touch. So looking at question 1, it wants to know the difference between 2 points P and Q. So this is like your distance formula that we learnt at straight line a few weeks ago. So to find the distance between them, we need to find the difference in our x values squared plus the difference in our y values squared. That's as far as we would go if it was a straight line. However, for vectors, we also need to find the difference in our z coordinates. So it's just adding in that extra stage. Now, normally we would label them x1, y1, z1, but because we're just taking them away, as long as we're doing the p coordinates take away the q or the q take away the p, it won't make any difference. So I'm going to be doing p take away q. So I'm going to do x coordinate of p, which is 2, take away the x coordinate of q, which is 4, and I'll need to square it. Then I'm going to do -1, take away 2, which is my y coordinates, and then I'm going to do 3, take away -3, watch out for your negatives, which is my z coordinates. I can then start to simplify that. So 2 take away 4 gives me -2 squared. -1 take away 3 is going to give me my -3. And don't forget my squared. 3 take away -3 means that I'm adding them together because it's a double negative. So I'm adding on 6 squared. So that means I've got -2 squared, which is just 4. Remember, if you square a negative, you get a positive. Plus 9. Plus 36. Add them all together and I get the square root of 49. Square root of 49, you should know, 7. So my final answer is 7. Looking at my options, that means that for question 1, my final answer was B, 7. For question 2, it tells us that P is the point 4, 2, -3, and it wants us to find the length of P. Now, in vectors, remember that length and magnitude are the same thing. So essentially what we're doing is calculating the magnitude of P. So for the magnitude, we're doing each of our terms squared, added together. Watch out for your negative there. And then we're square rooting it. So that's going to give us 16 plus 4 plus 9, which then gives us root 29. At that point, we would check to see if that surd could be simplified. It can't. There are no square numbers that fit into it. So looking at our options, we can see that the answer for question 2 is C, root 29. Question 3 gives us two vectors and it tells us that they're parallel and it wants us to calculate the value of x. So if these vectors are parallel, it means that one of them has been multiplied by a scale of the other. So what I mean there is if you compare your 3, 6, -2 with your -9, -18 and your x, look at what's happening between each of your points. So to go from our 3 to our -9, we've multiplied by -3. To go from 6 to -18, we've multiplied by -3. That therefore gives us a pattern. So to go from -2 to x, we must multiply by -3 as well. -2 times by -3 would give us a positive 6. So for this question, question 3, your answer is B, 6. Question 4, it gives us 2 points, points P and Q, and it tells us to find the components of PQ. So if we're looking for PQ, remember that is the same as Q minus P. So we're subtracting these two vectors. So Q has the components 3, 1, 3, and we're taking away P, which has got components 2, -4, 5. When we do that, just work your way down your x's, y's and z's. So 3 take away 2 gives us 1. 1 take away -4 gives us 5. and 3 take away 5 gives us negative 2. So when we compare this to our answers, we can see that 1, 5, negative 2 appears in C and D. However, the question specifically asking for components. Part C is coordinates, part D is components, so our answer for question 4 is D, 1, 5, negative 2. So question 5 gives us the points P and Q, and it asks us to calculate the magnitude of PQ. So remember, these straight lines either side of the PQ is telling us that we have to calculate our magnitude. Now, if we flip back to question 4 was the same coordinates and it asked us to find the components of PQ. Our answer for that question was 1, 5, negative 2. So we can use the fact that we've already calculated this to help us get there a little bit quicker for this one. So we've had that PQ was 1, 5, negative 2. When we're calculating the magnitude of PQ, so remember we square root each of the terms squared and added together. So we've got 1 squared plus 5 squared plus negative 2 squared. Close over my square root. So that's 1 squared is 1, 5 squared is 25, negative 2 squared is positive 4. And we can close that over. And that gives us root 30. Now remember, check if root 30 is a surd that can be simplified. There are no square roots that fit into that, so root 30 must be your final answer. So for question 5, your answer was B, root 30. Question 6 gives us the vectors u and v, and it wants us to find 3u minus 2v in component form. So if we're finding 3u minus 2v, we can substitute in values for u and v. So u is 201 and v is negative 124. Now remember, if you're multiplying by a scalar, you multiply each of your terms. So we're going to have 6, 0, 3, take away negative 2, 4 and 8. I'm running out of space, so I'm going to move my answer over to here. Work your way down, your lines start at x's, then y's, then z. 6 take away negative 2 gives us 8. 0 take away 4 gives us negative 4. 3 take away 8 gives us negative 5. So in component form, 8, negative 4, negative 5. Our answer for question 6 is D. Question 7 gives us coordinates for x, and it tells us that xy is negative 8, negative 1 in component form. It wants us to calculate the coordinates of y. So we've started off with xy. To find xy, we must have done y minus x, and when we've done that, we've ended up with negative 8, negative 1, negative 1. Now we know the coordinates of x, so essentially what we can do here is put that we've got y minus the coordinates of x, which is 6, negative 5, 4, gave us negative 8, negative 1, negative 1. Now you can figure that out from there. I'm going to rearrange this and solve it just as I would an equation by moving the components of x over to the other side. So when I do that, I would be adding on 6, negative 5, 4. So notice that that negative of that component became a positive on the other side, but all my components stayed the same. So it's still a positive 6, a negative 5 and a positive 4. When I work through the stages and calculate that, negative 8 plus 6 gives us negative 2. Negative 1 plus negative 5 gives us negative 6. Negative 1 plus 4 gives us 3. We were asked for coordinates, and the coordinates of this would be the exact same thing, but written out horizontally rather than vertically. So negative 2, negative 6, 3. Our answer for this question was B. Looking at question 8, so it gave us a cuboid and it told us the points of B and G, and it asks us to find the components of BH. Now, if we want to find the components of BH, we have to do the vector H, take away the vector B. Now, looking at what we're given in the question, we only know the components of B. Looking at our diagram, H is over here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is figure out the coordinates of H. We can use the information provided about B and G to help us with this. So to get to B, we've started off over at A. So A would be the point 0, 0, 0. We've went along 5 on our x-axis, we've not moved up our y, and we've not moved up our z. If we're looking to get to G, so again we would start at this 0, 0. I'm going to change the pen. So we would start at 0, 0 to get to G. We've went along our x-axis 5, this is our x-coordinate here. We've went back on our y-axis by 4, this is our y-coordinate, and then we've went up 1 on our z-coordinate to get to G. So thinking about what that means for H, so to get to H, we're starting at 0, 0. We're not moving along our x-axis, so H is going to have an x-coordinate of 0. We're moving back the same depth as our g-coordinate, which is 4 on the y, so that gives us 4. And then we're going up 1 to get to H. So H must have the coordinates 0, 4 and 1. So over here we're doing H, which is 0, 4, 1. And we're taking away B, which is 5, 0, 0. And that was given in the question and it's part of my diagram. 0 take away 5 gives us -5. 4 take away 0 gives us 4. 1 take away 0 gives us 1. So we're looking for the components -5, 4, 1. So for question 8, our answer is A. So the final question, question 9, tells us that 2 rectangles form a cuboid and it gives us a diagram. Now in that diagram, it's telling us that different vectors have got different names. So Sn has also got the name U. SR has got the name V and SP has got the name W. And it's also telling us that T is the midpoint of KR. Question wants us to express KT in terms of U, V and W. So it's a vector's journey question where we want to change our capital letters into our lowercase letters. So to start off, let's have a look at what it is that we're actually trying to find. So we want to find from K to T. Now the bit of information that we're given over here is that K to T is the midpoint of K to R. Now looking where your small letters are placed on this, we have got a route to get us from K to R. We're then going to take advantage of the fact that it's telling us that T is the midpoint. So I'm going to start off by getting from K to R. So starting here, I now need to find a route that I can travel where I know the names of things. So all your lines that are parallel are all going to have the same names. So for example, K to L would be V, N to M would be V, R to Q would be W, L to M would be W. So you can use that to help you. So I'm going to start off at K, and the first place I'm going to travel to is N. Now when I'm travelling to N, N is parallel to W, but because I'm going from K to N, it's going to be -W when I'm travelling backwards. So my first step is a -W. From N, I'm then going to travel down to S. Now again, I'm going against that arrow, so that must be a negative that I'm looking at, and it's a -U in this case. So I've started at K, travelled to N, I've travelled to S. I now need to make it over to R. And to get to R, we're travelling over a +V. So that started us off at K and it ended us at R. We didn't want to go straight from K right the way down to R. We wanted to get to the midpoint. So the midpoint would be half of this. Now looking at my options, I've not got any brackets in my options. So to make it a little bit simpler, I'm going to multiply this out. So I'm going to have a half of -W, so -1/2 W. And I've got a half of -U plus a half of V. So I'm going to compare this to my options. It's quite clearly not going to be B or D because they don't involve any halves. C is all positives. And let's compare. I've got a negative U and a negative half U here. I've got a positive V, a positive half V, and a positive half V here. A negative half W and a negative half W here. So for the final question, question 9, your answer is A. Remember, if you've got any questions about anything that I've went through, just send us a message and we'll get back to you.